All right, let's go to Sarah in Philadelphia. What's up, Sarah? How we doing?
Living the dream. How are you?
I am trying my best to not get my show canceled, but Kelly's intent on us not having a show anymore. So what's up?
So I have a question for you. My 14-year-old son has expressed an interest in and a desire to possibly move in with his father. And I don't think it's a good idea. And of course, I don't want him to go. But I don't know what to do. Like, is this something he has to do? Is this something I can stop? Because I don't think it's what's best for him. I don't know where to go.
Number one, I hate that. I'm sorry for all of you. Good grief, what a mess. It's been a mess for a long time.
He's the oldest. So I have 5 kids. And he remembers, he doesn't accurately remember what it was like when his father and I were together.
Yeah.
He thinks it was this beautiful fantasy land where everything was perfect and his dad was always there and always taking care of him. And I think he just wants that, but that was never true.
Yeah, of course. And he's filled in the gaps with movies and TV shows and conversations with his buddies. And he has created a caricature of the man who was in his life before his mom screwed everything up and left. And here we are, right?
Exactly.
Sheesh. Tell me about Dad.
So I'm going to tell you that he's not a bad dad, but he's also not a good dad. He's like in the middle somewhere.
That's hard for me to imagine. So give me some context.
Okay. So like when they go to his house, he lives 2 hours away, so he's not in town.
Okay.
So when they go to his house every other weekend, so it's 26 weekends a year, when they go to his house, they sometimes go on hikes. They play a lot of video games. Mm-hmm. They kind of sit around a lot and play video games. But he does take them for a bike ride or for a hike, normally once during the weekend. And he does reschedule at least 5 or 6 of those weekends a year. So it's kind of like, I don't have safety concerns for them when they're at their dad's house. I mean, when they were younger, I did, but now that they're all older, I don't. But
you know the difference. You know the reality he would move into.
Yeah. And like I'm remarried. I have a husband who I adore. And my husband's been in my kids' lives for, we've been married now for 7 years. So, like we show up, we coach, we're on the sidelines, we're cheering for them. We're always like, I go to all the school meetings, I volunteer, I do all these things to be part of their lives and to try and make sure that, they have the sports they want to play and stuff like that. And like, he does not do that. He has never done that. And
but hold on. There's more to it than that. You have to understand this is not a son making a statement about his mom.
Yeah.
This is not a son making a statement about his stepdad. This is a son wondering what the hell was so wrong with me that my dad left. And he will spend the rest of his life trying to solve that problem. Even if it means going from stability and love and connectivity to chaos.
Yeah.
He has to figure out what he did wrong. And it's this is one of those back end things why divorce is so tough, even when it's 100% necessary, is these little ones in the middle are left wondering what they did to contribute. And there's no amount of telling them nothing. Especially when the something is a larger than life figure 23 or 22 times a year.
Yeah.
And does all the cool things that mom doesn't let us do.
Well, and when he comes, so currently when my oldest son goes for weekends, and we do like my other 2 sons with my ex-husband, they don't seem to have, they're not as favored as my oldest son by my ex-husband. Like my ex-husband took just my oldest son on vacation last year and did not take the other 2. So it's very clear that they're not as favored as he is. Mm-hmm. But when he comes home from his dad's from the weekend, it's like 3 days of him hating me.
Oh, of course. The reentry is yes, absolutely.
And he says stuff like, now I'm always the one, like I never badmouthed my ex.
Mhm.
I think to the point where, like, not that I should ever badmouth him in front of the kids, but to the point where I think I've kind of glossed over things that really weren't okay.
Mhm.
Like, maybe even made the kids feel like, if I'm upset, I shouldn't be upset because mom says that dad loves me and stuff like that.
Sure.
Um, but apparently, I just found out recently, he's been bad mouthing me quite a bit
Sure.
and telling the kids that, like, I took them away from him
Sure.
and all this kind of stuff. And I was having a conversation with him within earshot of my kids, and he started accusing me of cheating on him, which wasn't true. And all these other things. And I'm like, I'm not going to speak to you about this right now. And he was at my house, and I was like, you need to leave my house right now. But it's just I don't know what to do, because I feel like if he moves down there, is he just going to hate me? Like, he going to believe all these things? Because I've, never really discussed this stuff with him, so he doesn't know any other side of the story.
Right. Here's what I'm fast forwarding because this is a complex issue, and it's not one that I can just say, yeah, you need to do this or do this.
Yeah.
My gut tells me he needs to stay with you guys. And my gut tells me that that's going to come at an extreme relational cost. Or to put it more directly, there's no way to win here. And so we're going to do the right thing even when it's hard.
Okay.
Like, you see what I'm saying? So if I were you, I would tell him, I'm willing to consider this, but we are going to go, you and him are going to go see a counselor together for a minimum of 2 months, 3 months, whatever.
Okay.
And in this conversation, the counselor can help guide the conversation about living arrangements, why he wants to move, maybe then slowly and gently and appropriately introduce, here's the reality of dad. Sometimes the counselor can ask questions that appear to put you on the spot that you have to answer, but that makes the counselor the bad guy, if you will, and not mom. Not mom just sitting down at breakfast lobbing grenades about dad, but mom asking truthful questions about, like, yeah, dad was abusive. I had to leave for my own safety, or I was trying to keep you guys safe. And all of those are going to be damaging to him because, and you probably heard me say this, he knows innately half of him is that guy and half of him is you. And he has to make that other half right, even if that means glossing over glaring issues like abuse, not showing up, rescheduling, forgetting. You just play video games while I'm doing some stuff outside. Like, he's going to gloss over all of it because he has to make it right, because that's part of him. And if he's not good, then I'm not good.
Okay.
And it's so messy. So messy. That's why it makes me so sick that he would talk bad about you.
Well, and I had divorced parents. So when I split up from my ex-husband, one of the things we talked about was, I was like, we can never badmouth each other, because you have to remember that half of our kids are each other. And it makes them feel like that half of themselves is wrong or bad or horrible.
Exactly.
And, like, that's a horrible, horrible feeling to grow up like that. I was like, they can't have that. And now, like, and I don't think he sits my son down and says, like, here's a laundry list of things that are horrible about your mother. He just makes, like, little comments, and he makes significantly more money than I do. And his household makes, like, probably 3 times as much. So when they go down there, it's like, we can go out to dinner, and it just all adds up into this perfect storm of, like, my oldest son just hating our house and being here.
Yeah. And it's chaotic too. There's 5 kids, 2 of which are, someone else's dad, like the whole thing. And then, you dangle this Daddy Warbucks situation in front of him. The whole thing's just a mess. And on top of it, I actually think if he sat your son down and was like, your mom's the worst, your son would have some defense mechanisms. Like, well, hey, that's partly me too. And he would think through it and he'd be like, well, mom hugs me. 14-year-olds are pretty sharp. I think the more insidious ones are, they're driving and he just puts his hand on your son's head and tussles his hair and says, wouldn't it be awesome if we could do this all the time?
Yeah.
wouldn't it be cool if your mom would like let us do this all the time? But she like, I mean, she went to court and said, I can never see you. And that's why we can't do this all the time. That is the stuff that is insidious because there's no comeback for that.
Yeah.
And I hate that that's happening to you. I'm sorry. The hardest part for you is going to be not taking this personal. It's a 14-year-old trying to find out what he did that was so bad and trying to figure out why half of him is so chose to leave.
Yeah. And I'm trying to like not take it
Oh, I
personally,
know, dude.
but
I'm asking you. Like, if it was me, I would, man, I would be taking all this personally. And you hear me say all the time, like, your kids can't make you feel anything. No, I'd feel terrible. I would choose to
oh,
feel terrible, right? It's the worst. It's the worst. I'm asking you to do the impossible. I know. But
no.
that's why I think bringing a counselor in and be prepared. The counselor may say, I think the best thing is to spend a year there.
Yeah.
And you and your new husband, y'all have that conversation. Would we allow this? What would it look like? What are the rules? What are the guidelines? What does the court say about it? You may get there. And I don't know enough about your son. I don't know enough about your divorce decree. And I don't know enough about what the long-term ramifications would be for him individually and your family unit, for him to go away for a year and try it out. I've heard of it happening, and I've never heard of it going well. Like dad's true
Yeah,
colors show themselves eventually.
yeah. And originally, my son was talking about trying it out over the summer for like 1 or 2 months. And here's the thing: I've actually offered to my ex-husband, like, would you like to have the kids for like a month during the summer, solid month, or like 6 weeks or something like that, so that you can like really spend time with them. And I always try and give him extra time whenever there is, time, because I know that the kids like being down there.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have behavior problems with my younger son with him because when he comes back, he's played video games the whole weekend and he can't control himself at school.
Of course.
But he's never been interested in taking me up on this. And all of a sudden he's interested. And I think it's because just recently he changed our support agreement and he no longer is able to claim my oldest son on his taxes. And it just cost him like $4,000 on his taxes.
Yeah, but he would if he's doing well financially, he wouldn't do something this dramatic for $4,000.
Well, he's not very good with his money.
I mean, you'd have to be really bad with mathematics to think a $4,000 tax write-off versus living every day with a 15-year-old is going to save you money.
I agree. I know how expensive my kids are. It's ridiculous.
Yes,
but
and he's just now getting into driver's education and driving and dating, and like things about to get real expensive. If he thinks
also likes to tell me all the time that the kids shouldn't do their extracurricular activity. Like, they're too expensive. You need to stop letting them do that. And you need to stop spending on that and that. And I'm always like,
of course,
no.
And that's why I say maybe with the support of a therapist, some of those conversations are going to come out. And maybe you nailed it. Maybe just trying in the month of July to see what it's like. Because here's what I'm thinking off the top of my head. A lot of the data suggests that when a husband and a wife split up and she takes the kids, her income, her net worth goes down. His accelerates exponentially. And generally it's because he can take as many shifts as he wants. He can work overtime and he can go get another degree if he wants. He's not trying to tread water. Yeah. And so it's not uncommon for there to be a ton of money that just ends up in this trajectory because he's got no anchor point, right? He can do what he wants. And then once a weekend, once a month, he gets a free for all and then to go ride go-karts and play video games and eat Lucky Charms for every meal. And then he can just return back to his real life when you and your family unit have to absorb the fallout from all of that. All that to say, I think it would be best to sit down with somebody, a professional, and tell your son, I'm willing to have the conversation, but there's a lot of the story that you don't know. And I believe with all of my heart that the respectful, kind thing to do is to always talk good about your dad. And so I've done that. And we're going to have to, if you want me to entertain this, then you're going to have to go with me for a period of time with a counselor, and we're going to have some direct, open conversations. And about you, about your thoughts, about your ideas, about safety, about my concerns. And then we'll go from there. Off the top of my head, I don't like it. It feels like a 15-year-old's gonna get dropped off in Neverland, and who knows what happens next. But I'm not an expert here, and so I wanna concede this one to somebody who's gonna have a real good insight of you and your family. At the end of the day, I promise you he'll come back. I promise you. You're playing a long game with him. And so 6 months, a year, 2 years, he's gonna come back, and he's gonna one day see, "Man, that woman never gave up on me, and she loved me and tried and kept showing up and kept showing up and kept showing up." Hang in there, Sarah. He's lucky to have you.